Hey guys, Introspection here, and I'm back again with another video. So as you may know, if you've seen my recent Rock Lee video from a couple weeks ago, I've been watching through Naruto, and of course I've really been enjoying it. Thus far, Rock Lee is my favorite character. But upon the recent episode that I viewed, I took note of a particular training method both Rock Lee and Guy Sensei use. And not only did I think to myself, hey, that'd be something great for me to actually apply to myself in real life, but I also thought to myself, you know, there's a particular piece of anime training I feel is often overlooked when we talk about whether anime training will work in real life or not. What I mean by that is that usually when you go onto YouTube and you look up, would so-and-so's anime training work in real life, or does so-and-so's anime training really produce these kinds of results? When you look up that kind of stuff, you usually get just, would this physical routine that they do work? Would this physical routine produce these kinds of results? Which is great, because a lot of the time we are very curious. Hey, this character is awesome. I wonder if I can do kind of what he does if I follow his training regimen, or if it's just limited to fiction. And I might make one of those videos myself sometime in the future. I don't know. But as helpful and as great as those videos are, I also believe that we end up missing this other part of anime training, which I argue, for a lot of people at least, it would be practically more useful to go over if it could actually be used to train yourself. And that is the sort of methodology that these anime characters use. Because I find that in a lot of the cases, the methodology is actually more practical and more universal than just the physical aspect of their training. Which I know doesn't make a ton of sense when I say it like that. But once you start listening to the video, trust me, it's going to make a whole lot more sense. So in this video, I wanted to go over 3 anime characters whose training methodologies will help pretty much, well, maybe not pretty much everyone, but a lot of people who are trying to get better at particular skills. And we're going to start out with Kengan Ashura. Now, for those of you who don't know, Kengan Ashura is one of those martial art fighting type animes. Think Baki. If you enjoyed Baki, you will more than likely enjoy this one. Personally, I would argue, and don't freak out on me here, don't freak out, but I would personally argue that Kengan Ashura is just a little bit better than Baki. I know, and believe me when I told Uku, let's just say it got really scary. But if you guys want to fight me on it, the comment section below, okay? But I think we can at least all agree, for those of you who've seen it, it's still a good anime, and more people should see it, because again, it's a good anime. But I want to focus on the main character. Now, as I'm sure you've probably already guessed, even if you haven't seen the anime, to fight at the level that he does, he has a variety of training techniques. One in particular is very interesting to me, and that is one where he will watch a fighter and then basically go into a meditative state where he can create a simulation of that fighter and then fight him and figure out how to defeat him without being in an actual fight. Now, it should go without saying that being able to do this at the level that this character does for the majority of the population is physically impossible. It's just not doable to do it the way that he does. There might be a couple really mentally gifted people who can pull this off, but the majority of the population cannot do this. So why bring it up? Because even though we cannot simulate one-to-one with reality, for the most part, in our minds, this technique in principle can still be very useful. Now, I've personally used similar techniques to learn a lot of new skills. And it helps quite a bit. Don't get me wrong, it's not like I just imagine myself doing the skill and then all of a sudden I'm a grandmaster at martial arts, or suddenly I'm able to draw like Picasso, right? It's not like that, but it's a good way to take up empty time. So say you were waiting in a long line, or you were waiting for a couple hours, long car ride, and you don't have anything else to do, those kind of things where you really don't have much else to do, being able to run through a particular practice or skill or whatever in your head can be very beneficial because ultimately it starts with your mind and then you need to be able to do it with your body. Now, of course, the most effective way to be able to learn a new skill is by doing more and more of the new skill. There's no argument there. But having your mind already going through it makes that part of it that much easier. But you have to keep in mind that for this to work, in my experience at least, for this technique to work, you need to do your absolute best to make sure to recreate every potential detail. It's a step above just imagining yourself doing it. Like, for instance, say dance. Say you were trying to learn a dance move. It's very easy for us to imagine ourselves just doing some extravagant dancing, right? Something that is borderline physically impossible. Very easy just to imagine us doing it and then not being able to do it. The step above that is paying attention to every little detail. Say when you're moving your foot, how much pressure are you applying to your foot? How much resistance is there? Where is your body weight? Where is your center of balance? Those kinds of things. You pay attention to all of those details, and then learning the skill afterwards is considerably easier because your brain is kind of already primed to actually do it. Then it's just a matter of, well, maybe not just a matter of, because it's still very difficult to replicate everything, but then it's just absorbing new information and then making your body do it. Now, also keep in mind that the more information you have on the thing that you want to do, the more effective this technique is going to be. So, for instance, say you are trying to learn how to drive a manual car. You want to go through videos with people explaining to you the different principles on when to accelerate, when to decelerate, what you have to keep in mind. So when you have all that information, you can keep that in your mind and it'll make the simulation technique that much more effective. So again, you're not going to be able to perfectly recreate a new person and then fight them and then be able to beat them in real life. And you're not going to be able to just magically know new techniques using this method. But it does make learning stuff a little bit easier because your brain is a bit more primed for it. Plus, you can do it in times where you're literally physically incapable of doing anything else and you're bored out of your mind. This is why I often say that if you're bored, you're wasting time, because even when you can't do anything, you could be thinking. So I highly encourage you guys to try out this technique. I'm very interested to see what the results that you guys have. Of course, as far as I can tell, I couldn't find any scientific resources for any of these, so this is all just conceptual. I will say that up front, so I'm not guaranteeing any of these work, but in theory they all should, and I'm very interested to see what you guys come up with. Now, the next one is from an anime called Hinomoro Sumo, which, as I'm sure you've been able to tell from the title, involves sumos. Overall, very good anime, significantly less over the top than either Kengan or Baki, and a fair bit more story heavy in comparison to those other two animes. Overall, again, highly recommend it. But I want us to focus on a particular character. Forgive me if I say this wrong, it's been a spell, but I believe his name is Kunosaki. And I'll give you a warning, I'm going to go over the events of the first 2 or 3 episodes, so I'll try not to spoil too much, but you have been warned. Basically, this character is the president of the MMA club. This school has several clubs, also including, of course, the sumo club. So, president of the MMA club challenges one of the best fighters, or actually the best fighter of the sumo club, to a match. And of course, as you'd expect in an anime named after sumos, the MMA guy lost. But he ends up joining the sumo club because he realizes that even though his overall fighting style is really good, and even his balance overall also really good, it could be a lot better. And he wants to join sumo because even though it's not going to cover all of the things MMA can, he knows that sumo is going to have high focuses on balance and being able to take a hit. So because of that, he wants to join sumo to get better at those particular aspects so he can be an even better MMA fighter. And obviously, most of us are not trying to become the world's best MMA fighter or sumo wrestler. But the thing is, a lot of us we'll be trying to become better at something or be struggling in one particular aspect that we want to get better at. I'll give you an example. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters have a lot of things they have to deal with. Grappling on the floor, of course, but they also have to deal with takedowns, which means just getting the opponent from their feet onto the floor. Now, if you've ever seen a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match, you know that the majority of it is wrestling on the floor, essentially. Which means that a lot of the time, you're not spending doing the actual takedown. So it's very possible for a lot of fighters to be very good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but not great at the takedown because they can get away with trying to make it better after they hit the ground. So even though that's the case and they can get away with it, overall, they'd be in a much better position if they learn to do a takedown. So what a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters will do is that they end up fighting in Judo so that they learn that particular aspect a lot better and they can get better focus on it. And Judo fighters do the reverse very similarly, funny enough. And obviously a lot of us are not planning to become fighters, but this can work out with a lot of things that we're trying to become better at. So, for instance, say you were doing basketball. You might be able to get away with a lack of speed because you have high agility and you have great ability to shoot. But overall, you're kind of just getting away with a lack of speed based on those two things, which might work out, but you know you'd be in a much better position if you forced yourself to do speed. So you might take up track, not going to be your primary focus, but you will do it so that you become faster. And this will happen in a lot of cases. The point I'm trying to get across is that if you're struggling to become better at something, sometimes the best thing to do is to take up an activity whose primary focus is getting better at that very specific thing. If you're trying to get better at overall just focusing and staying on task, take up chess. If you're trying to get better at overall reacting and thinking faster, take up video games. If you're trying to get better overall at just get better balance for your day-to-day, then take up ballet maybe. Maybe that might be a little extreme, but you get where I'm going with this. One training method that can work out for a lot of people who are struggling with a particular skill is just to take up an activity that has high focus in that particular skill. And now for my favorite one, last but not least, and the reason I decided to do this whole video to begin with, Rock Lee and Guy Sensei's training method. Now, if you've seen Naruto, you know that the thing these two are known for, one of the many things that these two are known for is that they'll set these arbitrary challenges on themselves. Nobody's holding them to it, and nobody could care less if they do or don't complete these challenges. It'll be crazy stuff. It'll be like, if I lose this fight, I have to do 1,000 push-ups. If I cannot do 1,000 push-ups, I will have to do 1,000 sit-ups. If I cannot do 1,000 sit-ups, I will have to do 1,000 squats. That sort of thing. Now, no, I am not suggesting that you need to be able to do 1,000 push-ups. That's well out of most people's ability and well beyond the requirement to just stay generally healthy. But what I am referring to is the arbitrary challenges in themselves, because they do two things when you hold yourself to them. The first thing they do is they incentivize you not to fail. It gives you a really good reason during practice, whatever you're doing, to be able to do the thing. So, for instance, say you were, Smash player, right? And you're doing some practice rounds. Overall, it's not a huge problem if you lose during a practice match because you're just practicing, which is fine, but you don't have a ton of incentive not to lose other than the fact that you just generally don't want to lose in a practice match, which for a lot of people, that might be enough. But for others, it doesn't really mean that they're going to be giving it 100% in their practice match. And more often than not, for you to be able to get the most out of something like a practice match, you need to be able to. So when you have something that incentivizes you not to lose, then it kind of encourages you to try a little harder and get more out of that practice match. So, just to use that example, if you say, okay, I have to do, I don't know, 10 squats if I lose, then you have very good reason not to lose. You have a good incentive in your head to try even harder to win even just a practice match. The other thing that this does is it gives you additional practice. It doesn't have to be anything physical. It just has to be a challenge that will benefit you in the long run. So, for instance, going back to the smash thing. Say you lose a match and you decide, okay, every time I lose a match, I have to do 20 parrying drills. It gives you more chances to practice that one specific drill or that one specific area that you want to focus on. It makes it so that you're passively getting better at that particular thing. So whatever you're trying to get better at, you can make that arbitrary challenge just more practice. And it makes it so it's just a little bit more, but you're not focusing on it too much. So it doesn't seem quite as mentally overwhelming as, say, doing 1,000 practice drills at once. So it has that dual effect. If you lose, you get more practice. But if you win, you don't have to do the thing that you don't want to do. Now, regarding these 3 training methods, obviously they're all not going to work for everybody, whether it's because of the kind of person they are or because of the kind of skill they're trying to get better at. So, for instance, I could not conceive of a way where you could use Rock Lee's training method to get better at drawing. I've tried. I can't think of anything. If you can, let me know. I'd be very interested. But I can't think of a way you could make those 2 things work. So, even though, of course, all 3 of these are not going to be applicable to everybody, I'm relatively confident that at least one of these things is going to work out for a lot of people if they give it a fair shot. So I encourage you, see if you can get any of these to work. And if you can, leave it down in the comment section below. I'd be very interested to see what kind of results you guys get. But with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have any other training methods from anime characters or, TV in general or movies that I missed out, leave it in the comment section below. If you guys liked it enough, maybe I'll make a whole other video. Other than that, make sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell button. I post every other weekend. What's that, Uku? What do you mean more training? We just did like 3 hours of training. That was the warm-up? Oh, okay. Well, I might have to read out my will. But other than that, make sure to hear nothing and listen to all. Bye, guys. Hey, Uku, what's that? Ah!